Okay. Well, it looks like people are starting to get into our Q&A session. So I'm going to give it about 1 more minute till I see everything populating. I'm sorry for the delay. There was a small computer issue on our end. So anyway, I want to apologize that we started a little bit late, but anyway, we'll get started here in just a moment. Okay, well, it looks like everybody has populated up. So I'm going to quickly share my screen and I'm going to start the presentation here. And there we go. Okay, whoops. Okay, so hopefully everybody can hear me and hear me well. Okay, so my name is Tim Albert and I'm Associate Director of Housing. I also want to apologize. I had somebody else who was going to help me today and he was sick. So he's not going to be able to help me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a quick presentation here and then after that, I will answer questions that weren't answered as part of the presentation. Okay, so anyway, just a little bit about Seattle University and housing, just so that you're all aware. Basically, we have something called the Red Hawk Residential Experience. And whoops, actually, I'm starting one slide too fast here. Okay, so anyway, welcome to Seattle University. Very excited to talk with all of you today. Sorry, I just jumped in a little fast, a little bit discombobulated. But a little bit about housing in Seattle University and our approach. Seattle University focuses on whole person education. And living on campus is an integral part of that whole person education. Living on campus really does enhance the student education and interaction. It also brings a greater sense of connectedness, community, proximity to resources, and we really do emphasize care of the students as part of our 24/7 support. Okay, so the Red Hawk Residential Experience, so that's what you get when you live on, supports student success and learning. We really emphasize engaging with first and second year students in particular, along with upperclassmen to help connect them to resources, programs, services, various activities that enhance learning, development, and community. Policies and programs are in place and those services are there to encourage personal development and responsibility. And your on-campus experience, it will be meaningful. It will also be fun. But your experience to a great extent is also what you choose to get out of it. So the more you put into your experience at Seattle University, the more you'll get out of it. Okay, just a little bit, and just as a quick note for today's presentation, you do not need to memorize any of this or even write down these dates and things like this. All of this is going to be sent out to you a little bit after our Admitted Student Day presentation tomorrow. So don't worry about any of that, but I just want you to emphasize on just kind of learning about the experience today. So just a little bit about why we have a residential policy at Seattle University. For over 50 years, there's been research that demonstrates that basically that residential experience really builds a greater sense of belonging and community membership for students. Students who live on campus tend to succeed better in their academics, particularly during those first 2 years. They're more likely to get involved, more likely to have kind of that more rewarding experience. As a result, Seattle University has a live-on requirement for the first 2 years of attending at Seattle University. As part of that living on campus, we engage with our residents to assist them at finding their place at Seattle University, where they can make friends, get connected to our community. We encourage students to live on for third and fourth years, but They're not required to live on as our first and second years are, and we can't necessarily guarantee housing for all 4 years. However, we do have some partnership buildings on campus that prioritize on-campus living for our juniors and seniors. Okay, so a little bit about our staff and the support that we provide. We have live-on staff on campus that help facilitate this Red Hawk residential experience. So who are these different folks? So, well, we have our professional staff. You'll know them as the area coordinators. So that's the somebody who lives on campus, but they also work in that particular residential community. They have a master's degree, or they're sometimes finishing it up a little bit, and that's either going to be in student development or in counseling or a related field. We also have graduate assistants / assistant area coordinators who are in our student development administration program or our counseling program, and they are finishing up their master's degree. And they also live on campus, and some of them live on the floors. And both of those two positions, the assistant area coordinator and the area coordinator, share responsibility as being part of our on-call staff. And so they're available in the event of a crisis or a student emergency 24/7. Then we have the resident assistants, and these are the students who live on the floors and in the various communities and help facilitate that daily Red Hawk residential experience, help connect students to the community, to resources. They're also there to help connect them to each other, facilitate conversations with roommates, and providing a great deal of other services to our students. As part of that, they also are on duty at night, and they help with lockouts and other various students with issues on campus. We also then have our desk staff, and they provide services, some of the most important ones to students, or at least that's what students express, things like packages and equipment, along with security support in our lobbies, and connecting with those different folks. They also just give out equipment, help with filing a work order if you need one, giving directions on campus, and greeting you as you come into the building. In addition to those folks, we also have our resident ministers and Jesuits in residence. And many of our Jesuits and residents are actually faculty members, along with resident ministers are either faculty or staff members at Seattle University. And they're there for an additional level of support. So that's our basic staff, in addition to the housing office, the central office staff. And all of those folks are here to help support our students. Okay, let's just talk a little bit about residential engagement. So a little bit more about what is that Red Hawk residential experience? And this is where your RAs are there to help support you in your transition by help providing resources across campus. They help build individual connections to students, and then they're here to help you get connected to events and clubs and resources. But sometimes, let's say there's a roommate conflict or something like that, they may also be assisting you in having that conversation. So that's a little bit about what the RAs do. And then really a lot of the programs and services we do help support all of that at Seattle University, and really help make sure that students are getting connected to our larger Seattle University community, along with getting connected on your floor or in your building. Oops, we jumped over. Okay, so let's talk about some other opportunities here at Seattle University. Okay, so one is the Residence Hall Association and Hall Councils. And so that's sort of like your student government within the residence halls. All students are automatically a member of the Residence Hall Association if they live on campus, and they're also all part of the Hall Council for their area. And some of the different things that Hall Council and RHA do is they do programs and fun activities, but they also do things like advocacy. So it can be a changing of a policy or a procedure on campus, in addition to supporting that larger community development. But it's also one of the first leadership opportunities, because you're automatically a member of RHA and the hall councils, that you can participate in here on your first day landing in the residence hall. So that's available for you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the buildings that we have on campus. So for our first year students, we have 3 primary residence halls: Bellarmine, Campion, and Xavier. Those are our more traditional halls where you have a lounge on the floor, you'll have a bathroom down the hallway, and most rooms are going to be double rooms. And we'll talk a little bit later about what's in those rooms. What's great about these communities is you really do get to meet a lot of folks, and you get to find students who are like yourself, who are living on the same floors, and you're also taking a lot of those same classes together. So it gives you that sort of built-in sense of community really fast. However, as students then become second years, they often have some additional options. So then we have Chardin Hall. So they can still live in Bellarmine, Campion, and Xavier, but we also then have Chardin Hall, which is all suite. So it's like 2 rooms that have a bathroom. And so the 4 students in there then share that space. And so we have one building that's all sophomores in Chardin Hall. And then we'll also have some limited housing available in the Murphy apartments for sophomores. Not a lot, but a little bit. Then as students become juniors and seniors, they don't have Bellarmine, Campion, and Chardin available to them, but they do have some other housing options. And so one is Kolvenbach Houses, which is a very small service community in 2 houses in between our 2 fields. We have the Yobi Apartments, which are single rooms that share a kitchen and a study room on each floor, and that holds about 45 students. Then we have the Murphy Apartments, which are our on-campus apartments run by Seattle University. And then we have the Douglas and by Hilbert, which are partnership buildings that are on our campus, and they are for our junior and senior students. So you might ask, what comes in a room? So each residence hall has, or each residence hall room, or each student gets a bed, a desk and a chair, a wardrobe. And all of those are movable. So the wardrobes, the desks, the chair, the bed can be moved. Beds can be bunked. They can even be raised up a little bit depending on what the students are looking for. It also has a bulletin board. And also it doesn't say on here, but you also get some shelves and things like that to assist you. All of our student rooms in the traditional residence halls come with a sink in the room, which is really nice. That way you and your roommate share that. You don't have to share sinks down the hallway with a lot of folks. We also have a micro fridge, which is a refrigerator with a freezer and then a microwave on top of that. And that's in every room. So you don't need to bring that. In fact, we don't let you bring other refrigerators, but you do get the micro fridge in every single room. And then again, as I stated before, our furniture is modular, so you're able to move that around. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about residence hall amenities. So we do have our front desk operations that give out packages, assist students with all things, also mail, helping with carts, vacuums, different equipment that you might need. All of our rooms also come equipped with Ethernet and Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi is pretty good, but if you do have the option to have Ethernet, an Ethernet port on a computer, that might help you. It's usually a little bit faster. Just wanting to think about what makes it the easiest when you're in your room. We also have computer and printing services in our buildings. We have study lounges and both individual and group study spaces inside all of the residence halls, but also across campus. We have laundry facilities, and depending on the building, in some cases it's on the different floors. So Xavier and Chardin has them on the different floors. Bellarmine and Campion and Murphy have them in one location. We also have community kitchens, and this is where some of our buildings can be a little bit different. Xavier has a really fantastic demonstration kitchen that students may use. So it's also meant to bring in programs where you can bring in chefs and different folks to demonstrate how to cook. But a lot of the students just really enjoy, because then it is a well-equipped kitchen, and it's in one of their great kind of lounges within Xavier. Campion actually has a kitchenette on every single floor, and then Bellarmine has one kitchenette in the basement. We also have music and game rooms, and then really a fantastic custodial and maintenance service. They generally respond or resolve the issue in about 24 to 48 hours from the time it's reported, and that's for everyday things. If it's obviously an emergency, they can respond 24/7 in case there's any big thing like a busted pipe, or if anything else like that were to ever happen. But our custodial and maintenance services are really some of the best that I've seen at any university. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, when do you do your housing preferences? How do you sign up for roommates? How do you ask for that? So we have our housing portal, which, although you can go and see that we have it from our website today, you can't get into it yet today. It opens on May 4th, and that's along with all your other student preferences. It opens up May 4th. And so then May 4th to June 1, that's where students are putting in their applications, putting in information about themselves, answering questions. And then June 1 to July 13th, that's where you can do roommate matching, roommate searching, or you can just allow the university to make that match. And the matching that you'll see in there is based on some of the questions that you're answering, things like, what are your sleeping habits? What are your study habits? How clean are you? How organized are you? What kind of activity levels you like to have in your room? And then when we do the matching, we based it on compatibility. Now, if you choose to search, you're going to see students, and it kind of groups them by how well they match you based on a lot of these different questions. But also, if you have that friend that you came with, or a sibling or something like that, you can also create a roommate group, and you can choose to live with them. You just need to have their information so that you can find each other in the system and match. But again, we match based on compatible responses. But students may use that to find the roommates that they feel best suit them. And as part of that, when you're filling that out, you're going to have a little bit of where you have to check, yes, I want to take place in roommate matching. And then you also fill out a little introduction paragraph about yourself. So our housing portal takes you all through that. You can also come back and change it if you write it, and then you realize, hey, I don't really like, or I don't feel that reflects me that well. You can rewrite that. You can make those changes and update that. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about the dates. So in late April, the guide to applying will come out from admissions. May 4th is when the housing portal will open up at noon Pacific time. And again, then June 1 to July 13th is when roommate searching is available. Really, the other piece that I want to say on that is July 13th, starting the 14th, we shut the portal down in order for us to start making room assignments and room matching, because then we have until July 28th to get that out to students. So that's just a little bit about that. And then the last piece is our main move-in day is September 16th. However, you will get information for those of you who may need to arrive a little early on how to do those requests. But those will be due on August 17th for early arrivals. Okay, so I'm going to exit out of this and stop sharing. Okay, now I'm going to start just going through some of the questions that are going to pop up in this box, and I will just start answering the questions live. So one, are freshmen limited to the 3 dorms only, Bellarmine and Campion and Xavier? And I would say generally, yes, unless the student is older. First year students are going to live in Bellarmine, Campion, and Xavier. And that's so that they're living with their peers unless there's a particular need outside of that. Let's see. Is this meeting going to be uploaded later? Yes, admissions does save this, and then they will have this available for later. Let's see. Is there a safe provided? At this time, we do not provide safes in the rooms, but students may bring their own safe if they would like to. Are you able to share pictures of what a room looks like inside? If you go to our website, you can find some pictures. However, I do want to announce we have something actually pretty exciting coming up. So when you start getting your room assignments, we are partnering with a new company this year, and they're going to be able to provide you a 3D model of your room. And it's something that you and your roommate will both be able to sign into and move furniture around. You'll even have the option to kind of decorate the room in advance so you can kind of see that. So we'll have more information on that because we just finished working out those details with them. But that will be something that will be available to you. But you can see some basic pictures of a room and some of the dimensions that are up on our website now. Okay, let me just. Okay. Let's see here. Is there bike parking? Yes. And so students can bring bikes into their room. I don't necessarily suggest it since, you know, it can get a little bit cozy with you and your roommate in there, but we do have that. But we also have parking outside of our buildings, and there is a centralized bike cage for students in the Murphy garage, which is next to Campion and next to Chardin. Okay. As a first year, do you get the option to choose which of the 3 buildings? You can preference the 3 buildings, and you can put it in order of here's my first preference, here's my second preference, here's my third preference. And I would definitely encourage you to go look on our website, get some information about the buildings, but also know that regardless of which building you're going to be in, you're going to have a very similar experience in your first year. Is laundry included or coin operated? Laundry is not included, but it's also not coin operated. Laundry is available through an app, and it's called PayRange. It's something you can download pretty easy. And then you add as much money as you want. You can do it in small increments so that you don't have to sit there and figure out exactly how much you're going to wash for the entire year. But you do get, you know, you can control the laundry through there and then add as needed. Okay, do men and women share bathrooms? And no, those are separate. We have separate bathrooms for men and women. And also just a little bit about our bathrooms. Even though they are community restrooms, the toilets are all individual stalls. Along with the showers, and the showers have it's each a private stall for each person. There's also a private changing space in front of the shower so your clothes don't get wet when you go down there. But men and women do not share restrooms. Are the floors co-ed? Most of our floors are co-ed. We still, again, have separate restrooms, but we also have some single gender women's floors. Is it possible to live on an all-female floor? And yes, it is. You should put that in your preferences when you do fill that out, if that is something you're interested. Is choosing your room a lottery system? So the way a first-year student is assigned, we take the students who are in there, and then we're doing roommate matching. We try to give as many people their first or their second process. I wouldn't say it's a direct lottery, but we try to give everybody their first or their second preference generally. We can't always do that. And sometimes roommates can have different preferences. So we'll kind of make sure that roommate preference, if you do have a roommate preference in there, we will always make sure we honor that. And that will be more important than the building assignment. So we will have that in there, but it's not exactly a lottery system for our continuing students. So when you get into your second and third years, it's not a lottery, but students get assigned appointment times. And that is, I guess, somewhat lottery in that it's randomized within your class group, so that juniors and seniors do it at one time, sophomores do it at a different time, even though there's kind of different options for them. Okay, is there a curfew? No, there is not a curfew. We do have things called quiet hours and courtesy hours. And courtesy hours are 24 hours a day. And that's where if it's too loud for somebody on the floor, we always ask that people are able to sleep and study. So if you're being too loud, you may be asked to quiet it down. And then in the later evenings, we do have times where you need to keep it very quiet. No one should be able to hear you outside of your room. We also have visitation hours where guests should not be in the rooms after a certain period. And it does vary a little from traditional halls to the apartments. But we do not have a curfew, but we do have courtesy hours, quiet hours, and visitation hours. Are the dorms co-ed? Can my son request a room with his girlfriend? And no. We are a Catholic institution, and we do not allow people, particularly in amorous relationships, to live with each other. How many students per room? Typically, our rooms are going to be 2 students per traditional residence halls. We do have some rooms that are a little bit bigger where we do allow students to live in a triple room. It is for a lower rate, and some students actually do prefer that. What is the bathroom situation like in the residence halls? I think I kind of went through that one already. So again, they are community restrooms, but the showers and the toilets are private and separate, but we still have, even with that, we still have men's restrooms and women's restrooms. Are the dorms co-ed? I think we did that one. If I'm applying to have an ESA animal live with me on campus, will I send the application with my housing application? ESAs are actually approved through disability services. And so I would say for any student who may have needs that are best addressed by disability services, they should be attempting to contact and get that information to disability services, and then they send us a recommendation for what should be done. And so in particular, if you need any changes to your room, we want to know those well in advance so that as we're doing room assignments, we're being as conscious and aware of that so we can give you the best situation possible. So again, if you do have any questions on that, I would direct you to disability services. But if you have questions also specifically on ESAs, it is on the housing website. Meal plan information. So if you go to our website, you can see the meal plans. Just so you know, the way meal plans work at Seattle University is it's a declining balance system. So we don't have like an all you can eat. You can use it on one of, I think it's 6 or 7 different dining venues on campus. The main one being Cherry Street. So that's kind of the traditional one with different stations. But the idea behind the way our meal plans work is you buy what you choose to purchase in your different locations. So if you're somebody who wants to get your coffee or your espresso every morning, you go to one of the coffee shops on campus. If that's not something you do, maybe you go somewhere else. In addition, we also have a specific vegan cafe in our new science center. We also have a convenience store on campus, and that's actually in Campion Hall. And that allows students to buy extra items too. So I need some toothpaste. You can use your dining dollars towards that. So that's a little bit about that. You can also go to our website and see that. So let's see here. We answered that question. Are there residence halls specifically for students in the honors program? And no, there are not. If there are students in the honors program who want to live together, we do allow that, and they can match through our housing portal, but we don't have a specific building for them. You said there are printing services. Are those for free or do you pay for it? So for the printing services, students get a certain amount for free, and then after that they pay by page, and so they can add money to their student account for that. I will say most of the students I talk to make sure that they stay within the free amount that they get, and that kind of resets every single quarter. Okay, can you change the temp of your dorms if we wanted to? So you do have some control over it. I can't say that you can completely control the temperature, but you do have a dial where you can turn it up or you can turn it down. And that can make some big differences in your temperatures in your rooms. Is there a student orientation that takes place before move-in? And yes, there is. And you'll, when you fill out your student preferences forms, you'll get more information about that. But you'll do, it's actually not before move-in, although there are some groups that do it before move-in. Most of the student orientation takes place on that Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday after move-in. If you have already found a roommate, what is the process you need to follow to ensure you get your roommate? And so it's the same process we talked about before. You will just create a roommate group and you and your roommate will go in it. And once you've done that, then you will get your roommate. Is Xavier Hall freshman only? Can you talk more about the demonstration kitchen? Well, I could talk all day about the demonstration kitchen because I love it. In fact, I wish my kitchen was that nice. But Xavier Hall is primarily a freshman building at this time, but the demonstration kitchen is just, you know, there's an oven, a warming oven. There's also a lot of big space where students can sit up. There's a couple of sinks, there's stoves, and then we also have some equipment that students can use, or students can bring their own equipment to use there. But it is really a very nice, if you are here at all for Accepted Student Day, our tours will be in Xavier and you can go ahead and see that kitchen. But it is really a nice kitchen. It is made so that about 15 to 20 students can sit around the table at one time if they would like, but I really enjoy it. Are all the residence halls the same costs? Bellarmine, Campion, and Xavier all have the same costs. The longer students are on campus and as they get different options. So if you get into the Murphy apartments, obviously that does cost more than Bellarmine, Campion, or Xavier. Chardin costs a little bit more than Bellarmine, Campion, or Xavier, but less than various apartments. And then within the apartments, there are different options. But Bellarmine, Campion, or Xavier have the same structures for double rooms and then single room costs and things like that. And you can go onto our website and see what those are. The university provides beds only. The students get to have a mattress, pillow, and other beddings. Yes, so we provide a bed and a mattress. Students should bring a pillow, blankets, sheets. If they want, you know, to make their bed softer, they can do that. But we actually do provide a mattress. And if you go on our website, it goes into everything that we provide. Okay. Is it possible to pick your residence hall? And so again, students can put in their preferences and then we try to honor as many as they can. If I have a service animal, can I get an exemption to live at one of the campus apartments? That would be through our disability services office. Is there a list of recommended items to bring to your dorm? And yes, there is. And actually, when we send out room assignments, we'll actually send those recommended items to you, along with also items not to bring. So like some of the things that we do allow to bring, and I'm assuming some of these are the questions that I'll get to later, and I'm going to try to get to as many of these as I can. You know, you can bring certain appliances like a rice cooker if it has an automatic shutoff. We don't allow deep fryers or things like that that could cause a building fire. But students may bring various items, and we, of course, always recommend the basics: your bedding, your soap, toiletries, things like that. And obviously the clothes that you need. Maybe not everything that you own, but you want to think about the clothes that you need. But we will send you a list of those. How do you pick between these options? Is there a choice or preference we can specify? And I'm assuming that's by building, and that is one of the questions that's in our housing application. Are there any worries about not obtaining housing requests that are not made quickly? If a students know who they want to live with, can that be accommodated? Yes, students can choose who they want to live with. We guarantee first and second year students housing. So I would not anticipate that we would not be able to accommodate students, since it's never happened. So can you tour each hall before we choose? We don't necessarily have available spaces in each of our buildings to tour, but if you come during admitted student open house or take a campus tour, you can see some parts of the buildings, but also a Bellarmine Campion Xavier room, although there's some slightly different shapes, it's the same square footage and it comes with the same amenities in the buildings. Could we bring electric cooking items like a rice cooker or a kettle? Yes, as long as, again, they have an automatic shutoff. Are there any thematic dorms? Specifically interested in whether there are places nursing students live. We don't have anything at this moment that is nursing students live here and business students live here. We see all of our spaces available for all of our students. So there's no thematic housing in that sense. Our housing is really about that overall student experience and how we connect our students to their different resources and their community on our campus. Are we allowed to bring a printer? Yes, but you do have access to other printing on campus. There was a question about meal plan options, and I would suggest looking at our website so that you can learn more about that. If you come here for admitted student days, our dining services will have more information on that. Can we stay with a relative during the first year? If you're talking about like a grandparent, parent, aunt, or uncle, yes, who live in an established household, that is where we do allow for an exemption, but you still need to fill that out. Okay. How are the floors assigned? The floors are assigned very much the same way we do the buildings. We have your preferences and then we fill them up, but we have floors that these are all freshmen or first year student floors, and we have others that are sophomore floors. So it probably makes a little less difference from one floor to the next. Okay. So when I'm assigned a roommate, how do I get in touch? Well, we'll actually provide you with their email address so that you're able to contact them. And that'll come out the first day when here's your room assignment, here's your roommate, so that you'll have all that information. That one's answered. Are triple room assignments ever given? We have some specifically designed triple rooms, but I'm assuming what you're talking about is if you would take a double room and turn it into a triple. That's rare. It would really only happen if we had a very, very, very large class that we were not anticipating. And we do work closely with admissions so that if something like that were to ever happen, it wouldn't be a big surprise. But that is not something that we anticipate doing, and we don't plan that we use triples as a way of resolving housing issues. Do all dorms have elevators? Bellarmine, Campion, Xavier, Chardin all have elevators. Some of our apartment buildings do not, and that's based on size, if they do not. How many roommates do freshmen have? Typically just the one. Are there chances later on to connect with the roommate chosen for you prior to moving in? And yes, and you'll get that information. Are the bed twin longs? Most of our beds are twin XL. And so, but if that is something that you're very concerned about, please make sure you put that information in your housing application. What % of juniors and seniors typically live on campus? It's about 45 to 50%. So not all of them choose to live on campus, but typically it's about 45 to 50%. And then a lot of the others do live in the neighborhood. How do you pay for laundry? And that's, again, through the laundry app. And it makes it pretty simple. And we actually have easily the lowest laundry prices in the area. And then there is a question about prices for parking, and I would refer you to the university's parking page. Housing doesn't actually get involved with that. Okay, that one we answered. Are athletes' buildings same? No, they aren't. Student athletes are treated just like every other student on our campus. Everybody gets equal consideration, and they stay in the same buildings as all the other students and on the same floors and go through the same roommate processes. Is there information on each of the different buildings? And yes, you can go right now to our website and you can see information on every single one of our buildings, but we'll also be sending you out information in the next couple of weeks. Are we allowed to choose which specific room we live in, or is it picked for us? We will actually do those assignments, but if you have any special concerns or needs, please put that in your housing application. How close are the residence halls from the main center of campus? If you have not been to our campus is not like miles wide. Our entire campus is, forget exactly the size of it, but it's about from Campion Hall, where my office is, to the student bookstore, which are probably the two farthest buildings from each other. It's about an 8-minute walk. So most residence halls are not more than about 5 to 6 minutes from another building. So right now where I'm sitting, if you're going to the gym, it's about a 3 to 4 minute walk. If you're going to the student center, about a 3 to 4 minute walk. And that's pretty typical of most of our residence halls. Are there special rooms for transgender students? No, we do have an inclusive housing policy. So if you do want to see that and understand how that works, please go to our website. We do have some bathrooms that are available for students who may not feel comfortable using either a men's or a women's bathroom or a specifically gendered bathroom. But we do allow our transgender students to live with folks, with other students that affirm their identity. And so we don't necessarily have a sequestered area, but we do have that available. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me directly on that one. Do you have to move everything out at the end of fall quarter? No, just at the end of the school year. For fall, you take, for the different breaks, you take home what you want to bring home with you. I've heard that parents prefer that you don't bring all your dirty laundry home. That's just something that I have heard from a few parents, but you bring home what you're going to need for the break. Okay. What items are not allowed in the rooms? Typically the things that we don't allow, and I can't go through everything, but this will be in some of the information. You can also go to our website. If you go to our resident handbook, it goes into it a little bit more, but it's things like weapons, things that cause fire, things that are likely to cause a household fire, things like that, that are the things that we don't allow. So, those are some things to keep in mind when you start to pack. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to get through to make sure I don't miss anything, but a lot of the same questions. So is it first come, first serve in terms of your room assignments? No. So you don't have to rush in on the 4th and be the first one in there to get your room preference. We typically, the students who get in by that soft deadline of June 1 are the students that we're going to run through the room assignments first. And then students who came after that, we will kind of run them second. But first year students and second year students are guaranteed housing on campus. Can you give us a price estimate for laundry? I think it is about, I think it's $1.25 a wash and $1 to dry. I wouldn't say that that's exactly what it is, but I believe that that's what it currently is. How many bathroom showers are available on each floor? I think the typical floor has about 6 showers, and then additional toilets, probably about 10 to 12 toilets per floor. I could be wrong on that, and it does vary a little building by building, but it's about, yeah, 6 showers per floor, and I think there are some that have more depending on the particular building. Okay. So there's a couple questions in here about, are we required to live on campus for their first and second years? So it is a 2-year requirement. So it's the first and second year. Third and fourth year, it is not required. So our residential area is broken into smaller cohorts by floors. Yes, you do have floors. They're not necessarily considered really a separate community, but in Bellarmine Campion and Xavier, for example, each floor has 2 RAs on them who do that student engagement. And so you have that on each of those floors. And then as you get into things like Chardin, there's a couple extra people per floor, but you still have 2 RAs per floor. And then when you get into the apartments, it's sort of like the Murphy Apartments has 5 different individual houses, and there's 1 per house. Do we have LGBT housing? We don't have a specific area for that at Seattle University. And if there are any concerns, please, again, feel free to reach out directly to me. We've kind of come to the end of the time, but I'm going to stay on and continue to answer questions. Since we did start late, I do want to make sure that I go through this. So I'm going to keep on going through these questions, but feel free to drop out or stop if you have other engagements or dinner or things like that you need to, but I'm going to keep on going through this. How has my day been? It's been a busy day and it's continuing to be a busy day. So that was one of the questions on there. Do the residence halls have air conditioning? No, we do not. Typically, if you have not been to Seattle, it's not the hottest city. It's also not always cold, but typically the only times of the year where that's really more or less wanted tends to be in the middle of the summer. And I will say this, I live in the neighborhood. I live just a few blocks away from Seattle University, and I don't use air conditioning that often. But depending on where you're coming from, it could feel hotter. But we don't have it directly in our buildings, but we do encourage students to have fans if they need those. They can also open up their windows and different things to help control those temperatures. Okay, we answered that question. If you own a car, is it possible to bring it? And that's through our parking services. I do believe they now allow first years to have parking on campus, but I would go to our parking services website. Okay. And again, another parking one. Do each of the buildings have options? And there's parking usually close to each of our buildings, but each residence hall does not necessarily have parking, its own parking. How do you honor roommate preferences? Again, it's what I had said before. You create a roommate group, and then that's how we know inside the housing portal who does that. And then we run those together. Okay. So is there any benefit to getting your application in earlier than the end of May 1 to June 1 range? The main thing getting it in on May 4th to June 1 is to make sure we have you in the system when we start doing roommate matching, that you have the maximum amount of time to do roommate searching. And it just helps us to know how many students we have that are planning to live here. How does Greek life work at Seattle University? And we do not have Greek life, or at least kind of the traditional Greek life at Seattle University. We do have business and honor fraternities and sororities. And we do have hundreds of clubs on our campus. Last time I looked, it was about 250 clubs. And I think that's probably what gives you more of that specific social connection around interest areas for most of our students. Are there study rooms in the residence halls that are 24/7? Yes, we do. We have 24/7 spaces in all of our buildings that students are able to use, especially if they're being so nice and wonderful to make sure that their roommates are able to sleep. So we do have individual and community study rooms. We call these our education centers, but also a lot of students like to, for example, Campion Lobby is a place that a lot of people like to study. And I sort of put a little emphasis on that because I think it's sort of a studying and also sitting in the lobby so that they can see everybody coming in and out of the building, because it becomes a study/social space for a lot of our students. And then also our library has some 24-hour study space. For musicians, are there practice rooms in the residence halls? Yes, not necessarily every building, but we do have practice rooms. And for those who are musicians through the music school, they also have practice spaces. Okay, that was answered. Are guests still allowed to spend the night in the residence halls? So for in the first and second year buildings, your guest needs to be of the same gender, but you also need to make sure you're clearing it with your roommate first. And that's just a common courtesy for your roommate to make sure that you are building those good roommate relationships. Do we know the exact dimensions of the rooms? Yes, and those they are on our website. So feel free to go there and you can see a Campion, Bellarmine, and Xavier rooms. Can I pay for a better room or apartment? Not for your first year, unless you are like a transfer student, you can opt for some different rooms. But for our traditional students, we have our double rooms. We also have something new for this next year called a double plus room that is a little bit bigger. So that is an option for some of our students. And then we have those specifically designed triple rooms. So those are those options for first year students. Is there a way to stay with a current student if they are planning to stay in Campion? Typically, first and second year students are on different floors. There may be some exceptions. Please reach out to housing@seattleu.edu if you have any questions. Okay. Can you describe the security procedures for entering the halls? So one of the things that you're going to get issued when you come to Seattle, I guess you can't see it that well, but you get your student ID. Your student ID is required to enter the residence halls other than like during move-in. All other times you have to use that to get into the building. You also need to use that to get up into the building. So all of the residential areas, so there's the lobby, so you need to use your card to get into the lobby. Then you also need your card to get either into the stairwell or into the elevator. So that's like one of our first lines. As part of that, we also have our desk assistants. And then in the evenings, public safety sits there. Public safety also patrols our campus and our residence halls 24/7 and are there. In addition, we also have emergency phones on campus in case you've lost your phone or something's happening or you're just nervous. And then we also have our RAs who are also going through the communities at night. And as part of that, both the RAs and public safety, they're checking to make sure doors are closed, especially anything that leads into the building and things like that. They also have security cameras throughout campus, not in every space. But the basic one is you need to use your campus card. And if you lose it, that's okay. Our public safety can instantly deactivate it, and then we can get you a new one. And that happens somewhat regularly for students, but we do actually deactivate them right away. Okay, so 2 of the same questions. Which building has the kitchen on the floor you are on? Oh, so Campion has one on each floor, and then Xavier has that fantastic demonstration kitchen. Is there a way to get free housing? Not that I'm aware of, but the cheapest room would be like the triple room. So if you do request that, that would be your least expensive way of doing that. Now our RAs, we do pay for their rooms, but I don't want to ever say it's free housing because I feel like they work very hard for that compensation. Are there any optional personal bathrooms as a freshman? Only based on if there's a disability or other special need. And so if you have something that would not be with a disability, I would encourage you to reach out to housing. So housing@cilu.edu, and we will let you know if you would fit into that. If a student qualifies for a single room based on a disability, will they have that option available in the freshman halls? And it really depends. And so I don't want to answer that one too much because it really depends on what disability services is recommending to us. We do have, sometimes we will offer double rooms as singles for our students, but we want to make sure we're also addressing any particular needs of an individual, and our disability services is best set up for that. Okay. Okay, we answered that one. How safe are the halls? So I'd love to have a student here answer that, because there's my impression and students might have differences. But again, our residence halls are locked or are card access 24/7. And individual rooms, and I did forget to mention this, so that's why I am answering this question. It says, are individual rooms locked? Yes, your door's locked. You can't set them to be unlocked. They will automatically lock whenever you shut the door. Sometimes that runs a few more lockouts than we have, but we do that in the interest of safety. Also, we use high security locks so that keys cannot be copied at most key places. So, but if a student does lose their lock, we will change it very quickly. And that can happen 24/7 because we do take student safety very seriously here. Are you able to go to different dorms? Your card does not allow you into the resident areas of other buildings. During certain hours of the day, it will allow you into the lobbies of other buildings. So for example, if you're a Campion student, you can enter the Bellarmine lobby during office hours because Bellarmine has our student health services and our advising services. For Bellarmine student, you can enter Campion lobby so that you can get to the cave or to the housing office. So those are during some limited hours, but you can't necessarily go to the other kitchens unless you're the guest of another student in that building. Are people other than Seattle University students allowed to visit the residence halls? So students can certainly have guests, but your guests have to be accompanied by you at all times whenever they're in the residence hall. So yes, you may have guests, but they do need to be accompanied by you at all times. Is it safe for students to walk off campus for meals? Again, I would rather have another student answer that instead of me. But I do live in the neighborhood, and I will say this, I generally feel safe. But as with any city or any, really any place that you live, you do need to be conscious of where you're walking, when, and where. Now, the immediate area around the university, I feel very safe, particularly along 12th Avenue, which is kind of the main stretch by the university. The farther you go off campus, you need to be more conscious of where you're walking. Always suggest going with other people. Don't go necessarily by yourself. But I will say, I do walk around this area a lot. I have 2 dogs and we go out walking all the time, especially the puppy. And I rarely feel unsafe in the area, but I also realize I may feel more safe than others because of my own identities and being male and things like that. But I would say always be conscious of where you're going, be aware of who's around you, and things like that. If you go actually onto our public safety website, they have a lot of here's some great hints and ways to keep yourself safe. But there are some fantastic restaurants in the area. There's always some new ones opening up. And for some reason, there's a ton of ice cream places in this neighborhood right now. Okay, answered that. Is it possible for LGBTQ students to room together? Yes. And we do, if our queer community, if you are concerned about anything, please contact our office. But we also have our gender inclusive housing policy that we do have for our students. So we do encourage our students to live with persons that they feel comfortable with. And we definitely want to be there to support all of our students, but we would consider ourselves queer positive on our campus. Okay. Where can I find recordings of this meeting? I believe our admissions office will send that out at the end of this particular session. That is answered. Answered that. If I send a package to my child, how will it be received? It goes to their front desk, and then the front desk will send them an email letting them know that we have it. And for parents, please check the parents page, the Facebook page during the academic year. I tend to put a lot of hints on making sure that your package gets there on time. And the best ways to do that. So what utilities are paid for in the dorms? All your utilities are paid for. So they're all inclusive. You do not have to pay anything else. Are there a lot of activities happening on campus on the weekends, or do most students leave and go home? Some students do choose to leave and go home. There are a lot of activities on campus, but I would also encourage students to, go and make sure that they find the different activities that they are interested in. So it's a little bit of both. I mean, some students will always go home, but most students do stay on campus. When is move-in? And September 16th is the main move-in day, but we do have some early arrival move-ins for students who may need that. Are students, out-of-state students, allowed to basically mail items before? Yes, you may, and that will all be in the move-in information we send you. Typically, what we say is about 10 days before you're scheduled to arrive is when you should ship it, so that we have it right there for you. Some dorms are strict on wall decorations. Yes, and we are one that does not necessarily let you put everything up on the walls. Again, our biggest thing, it's really about fire. So I know a lot of students love to have different lights that they hang up on the walls, but those have caused damage. And so, basically some of these smaller electrical things are where we do restrict. Now we do allow obviously posters and different things like that, but the main thing that we are concerned about is safety. That's always going to come first. Pots and pans, etc., in the kitchen. Yes, and most of our desks have some pots and pans, but I would also say if you like to cook a lot, bring something yourself. Will housing be shown during Minnesudent days? Yes, we do have residence halls tours, and they will be done by many of our fabulous RAs and DAs. Let's see here. Do Xavier and Bellarmine have only one, and Bellarmine has a kitchen on every floor? And that is correct. Okay. Best designed hall, newest hall. I think best designed really depends on what you're looking for. I mean, I will admit I'm partial to Campion because I was also a student here, and I live This is before we had apartments. So it's been a while. But I lived in Campion for 4 years of my life, and I don't regret it. I think it was a great experience for me. Our newest hall would be Vi Hilbert, and that's for juniors and seniors. But also, Yobi is fairly new. So we do have different buildings at different ages. Best designed is really hard. I tend to like ones that have a lot of community space. So Bellarmine, Campion, Xavier, in many ways, I'm very partial towards. How does off-campus apartment cost compared to on-campus? It's typically going to be much more expensive. Are the mattresses Twin XL? Most of them are. Most of the beds are. But if you have a need for that, do make sure that we are aware of that. How do residence hall assignments work for transgender folk who would, so transgender students do have the option of looking for roommates within a specialized group of students that identify that way. They may also look for students who have said that they affirm somebody who has a transgender nonconforming non-binary identity. And so they can search in kind of those different pools to find somebody who is a good match for them. If you have more specific questions on that, please feel free to reach out to me directly. Are the mattresses brand new? If not, are we allowed to bring your own? You can always bring your own. We're not necessarily going to remove the other ones. Our mattresses are never that old. Our facility staff does a great job at switching out mattresses. Also, our mattresses are covered with vinyl so that they're easy to clean. They don't get things like bed bugs in the mattresses and things like that. But anyway, that would just be, we do have those. We do replace them every few years. It's actually, last time I checked, it was a lot sooner than I thought it was. But can we bring wax melters? I think I would need to know more about a wax melter for me to be able to answer that question that specific. Is there an online virtual tour of the different residence halls? Not at this point, but that is the thing that will be coming out in the future. There are some, if you do go to the Facebook page, a couple of our RAs have done some tours of the different buildings. So if you look for Seattle University residence hall tours, you can find some, and a couple of them were done by people who are our RAs. What is the meal plan money system called? I mean, we just refer to it as our meal plan. And again, it's a debit system for students. And then 250 carries over quarter to quarter. Okay, answered that question. Answered that. Answered that. Are any of the 3 first-year students newer than the others? Technically, I guess you would say Campion is the newest, but Campion and Bellarmine are only 2 years apart, and Bellarmine and Xavier are only a few years apart. So I wouldn't necessarily say that they're a whole lot newer. Can I live with my relative for the first quarter and move into the dorms in my next? That would be based on space availability, but you can certainly request to live with a relative as long as it's like an aunt, uncle, grandparent, and then you apply for an exemption. And then if you would change your mind and decide to live on campus, you would need to reapply for housing. We do not have learning communities at this time. We have the Red Hawk residential experience. And actually, this sort of opens it up for me to talk a little bit about what that is. We're actually moving into what we call a residential curricula. And that's kind of across campus. It sounds like something very intimidating, where it's really not. It's really about sequencing student learning and student connection based on the needs of the students, because there's certain things we know, like, hey, at the beginning, we should be focusing in on the basics, like how to stay safe, how to get to and from your classes and things like that. But then it's also based on, making sure that we're getting you connected to each other as a community. Then as we go into the year, then it's addressing different issues that we know will come up at different times, or if a specific issue comes up, that we address that. That's kind of how we do it. But we consider each of our buildings like its own kind of learning community and living on campus as our larger learning community on campus. Okay, and I did answer that. And that one, that one, that one, that one. Do students choose their classes before or after move-in? And I believe your registration will happen in the summer. So that should be before. Are there things like bike scooters available for rent on campus in order to get around? Our campus isn't that large, so typically if you're trying to get around on campus, you don't need that. If you're trying to go off campus, I can tell you it's hard to walk across our campus without running into Lime and Link and Bird and all the other scooters. I will admit, occasionally, if I'm really running late and I'm on my way to my kickball game, I have occasionally used those to get around town. Are transportation passes included? There is some free transportation passes through our hub desk. Students also are able to buy some discounted transportation to Orca cards and things like that to use around the city if they are using those regularly. And I would contact our parking services about that. Do students that are in the ROTC program live in the same space buildings with other students? And yes, they do. And then we are. Do you have to pay to use the gym? And no, you don't. I even use our gym, but no, that is available for all students. Are there bathrooms on each floor or just one area per building? And they're on every single floor. We don't want you to have to be going to different floors to use the restroom. Are self-defense instruments allowed in the dorms? I would want to know more about that specific one, and that might be one to address to our housing@seattleu.edu so that we could do that. I mean, we don't allow weapons to be used for self-defense on our campus. But if you do have other things that can help keep you safe, then we do encourage them. And we do have a program where students can also get like a little emergency panic button that you can hook up that will also send your GPS information if something like that ever happened. And you can get that through our public safety office. If you are participating in study abroad for a quarter, do you lose your room? You do give up the room for that quarter, but we will ensure that you have housing on your way when you return. So it also depends on the particular quarter and things like that. But typically students will move out. There can be occasional reasons that we give an exception to that, but that is somewhat limited. Okay. Pets. I assume students can't bring pets to live with them unless it is a service animal or an approved DSA or fish in a 5-gallon tank or less. Yes, we do not allow pets in the residence halls. How many rooms does one floor have? And it really varies building by building. Campion, Bellarmine, and Xavier, about 30 rooms-ish per floor. What are concerned about drug abuse, homelessness, population? I mean, as with any city, that is obviously an issue on campus. I don't think it's necessarily something that I see a whole lot in our immediate neighborhood. You know, if you go out far enough, you will see it. But we do have a homeless population in our city. I don't know if I'm necessarily the best one to always answer that, but I would, if you have more concerns about that, I would actually contact our public safety office. Plus, they have that in, they have some statistics on their website that can help answer some of those questions. Okay. Are there heaters in individual rooms? And yes, there's a lot of heat in a lot of our rooms. Where can we find out about campus jobs? Well, that's great because I can tell you right now. It's because I just was doing this with some of our students. So if you go to our career services website, you can also see something called Handshake, and that's where you can find out about different campus jobs that are available at different times. And I will say over the summer, we will be advertising for a limited number of desk assistant positions, but we do like to reserve a handful of those for our incoming students every year. So is there a limit to basically how hot or cold you can make your room? And it's limited basically by the equipment in there. It can only get so hot and it can only get so cold. When the air turns on, it will be within some parameters, and I do not know what those are off the top of my head. If you really want to know, if you email housing@clu.edu, I'd be happy to connect somebody to our facilities department. So what can returning students from out of state do with their belongings at the end of the school year? So we have a couple of different options for students. So there's actually a storage building on campus, and it's in the same building as our bookstore, and they do have discounts for students, but I would suggest that 2 or 3 students go in there together to do it because their storage spaces are closer, about the size of my office. So once you have all your stuff packed up, that's there. We also work with a storage and shipping company that can arrange for either storage or shipping. And we have information about that on our website, but happy to help students get connected to that. In fact, because we're getting closer to closing for us this year, I'll be sending that out to students in the next week who live on campus. Are there restrictions on electronics such as computers and device peripherals? Not that I'm aware of anything. I mean, many students do have big screens and things like that they use. And we do allow that on campus. The only thing we don't really allow is for a student to bring a separate Wi-Fi box. We do have Wi-Fi throughout the buildings, but that tends to often interfere with the Wi-Fi that we have available for all of our students. Okay. Let's answer that. Which rooms has double plus, or which buildings have double plus? That would be Campion and Bellarmine. So we do have air filtration. So this is what changes were made to the residence halls for COVID-19. We do have air filtration and circulation throughout all of our buildings. In fact, we found out as we did a study, a lot of our buildings, the air changed over much more quickly than we thought, and all of it is filtered, but we also have windows, and windows are operable in all of our rooms for our students. But I would say some of the biggest things that we do, and we have continued to do, and we actually plan, is we sanitize a lot of our public spaces more. And that's not really so much COVID as I would say, it just kind of brings down the general germ load in the residence halls. And so we've continued to do that. So all of our bathrooms are cleaned at least once per day, and then sanitized an additional once or twice per day to help our students. And then all of our public spaces are sanitized daily. How do you communicate with students in an emergency? So that is a great one. Go to our public safety website. We do have basically an alert system that students can sign up for. Parents can also choose to be notified on that. And so in the event, depending on the emergency, it might be email, but if it's an emergency where we need students to know right away, that's going to typically be on text. But we also have some public address systems across campus to use if needed. And that usually is coordinated through our public safety department. But that is available for students to sign up for at any time. And we do strongly encourage students to be sure that they are signed up for our E2 campus system. What kind of on-campus support and safety services are available to our students? And again, I think our public safety can give you a lot more about that, but we do our public safety, in addition to all the other things that I have already spoken about, We do, our public safety can give escorts across campus and within a certain area around campus to assist them. They're also there on the phone 24/7. If we've even had cases where a student got in trouble off campus, something was happening, they felt unsafe, and our public safety helped them arrange for transportation to get home. We can't say, I'm not going to guarantee that we'd always be able to pick up a student, but it's even been on other parts of the city, and we have assisted our students, and we would continue to do that. But go to our public safety website, and it can give you much more about what is available for those students. Can you bring a TV? Yes, you may bring a TV. We do not provide cable. We have put all of the money we used to spend on cable into our internet services, since that's how most students are typically watching their entertainment these days. Can I bring string LED lights? We allow battery LED lights, not plug-in, because the string LED lights have caused too many household fires and other things like that. And we've even seen them, if they sit on the walls for long enough, that they have burnt some of our walls, like not caused a fire or anything, but they are there. Now, also, just because I didn't mention, we do have sprinklers throughout our buildings in the event of a fire, but a lot of our approaches, we want to avoid having a fire in the first place. When were the halls most recently renovated? And it depends on exactly what you call renovated. Campion has had some work in the last 10 years, Bellarmine about 15 years, and these are significant things. Although Campion and Bellarmine right now are going through a process, and this summer Campion, all of the windows in Campion will be replaced this summer. So that's the entire window sill, window frame, everything. They are great windows. And then Bellarmine will get them the year after that. And then we're also looking at some of that for a couple of our other buildings. But different buildings have different work. But every single year we do some painting, some new carpets, some new beds. So we do some of that every year. Does Xavier have an elevator? And yes, it does. What is the last day of choosing a roommate? And that would be July 13th and no later. If you do study abroad, you don't have to pay for room and board while you're away at SU. No, because you are not living there and you're taking your items out, you do not pay for that room. How many floors are there in each building for first-year students? In Xavier, it's 3. Bellarmine, it's 5, and Campion, it's 9. And that's an approximate that can change sometimes. Okay, we answered that. String lights. Do the automatic locks unlock if there is a fire? I'm assuming you're talking about student rooms. Those don't necessarily unlock, but that never locks you into the room. The fire doors will automatically close, but then be unlocked in the event of a fire. But for student rooms, you actually want those doors closed in the event of a fire. All the outside building locks and the front doors and things like that do unlock during a fire. Okay, so that is the end of all of the questions. So I just want to see if there's any 1 or 2 last questions. But if not, I do want to thank everybody for coming, and I hope everybody has a great night. Okay, so anyway, thank you all. I hope you all have a great night. And for those of you who are coming for admitted student days, I will see you there. And I hope you all have a great night. And if you haven't had your dinner, go get your dinner. And we'll see all of you later. And thank you. And I'm going to end our presentation, and I hope you all have a great day. Thank you, everybody.